All right, so King Charles heads to Australia soon, huh? A lot of you have been asking about this trip, and let me tell you, it's a big deal. I mean, we're talking way more than just a quick how do you do.
Right. And this Daily Beast piece we're diving into today really drives that home.
Yeah, it paints this whole thing as like this really high stakes event, and not just for Charles himself, but for the whole, monarchy thing.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got Charles's health, the cancer diagnosis fairly recently.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone's going to be watching him under a microscope, right?
Yeah.
Analyzing every cough, every little stumble.
For sure. And the fact that he's even pausing his cancer treatment for this, just adds a whole other layer to it.
It's like the whole trip becomes this public health spectacle. What do you think? I mean, pausing treatment, that's a pretty big decision, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you could see it as this like really dedicated thing, like he's so committed to the crown, he's willing to push through even with his health.
Right. Duty above all else.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, you have to wonder, like, what's the cost of that? Is this level of pressure, is it really necessary?
Especially with that little tidbit in the article about Camilla being relieved he's skipping that climate summit afterwards.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
It really makes you think what's going on behind the scenes, right?
Totally. I mean, are they having serious talks about how much he can handle? It kind of suggests even within, the whole royal circle, there's concern about this trip.
It's a lot to take on, for sure. Okay, so we have got a king battling cancer, pausing treatment to make this trip, and even his inner circle is kind of nervous. This is sounding less like a royal tour and more like,
A tightrope walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the article really digs into what might happen if this trip doesn't go well.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fascinating, right? Because, like, one former courtier called it a gamble, remember? To prove he's not, well,
Right.
that seemed kind of harsh, but you can see how the stakes are really high.
It is this balancing act, isn't it? He has to project strength, vitality, but he also can't deny the health stuff that's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And then you add in how people feel about the monarchy these days, especially in Australia.
Right, exactly. Like the article talks about this growing Republican movement down there.
And that quote from the Australian journalist, comparing Charles and Camilla to, like, what was it?
A couple of old pensioners wandering around Canberra, yeah.
Ouch. Not exactly the image of a dynamic, powerful monarchy, huh?
Yeah. It's pretty brutal, but it does reflect something real.
Like how times are changing.
Exactly. Like people are asking, is the monarchy still relevant? Do we even need this anymore in this trip? This is where all those questions come to a head.
Yeah, you're right. So you've got Charles trying to, like, solidify his reign, show everyone everything's cool, and he's walking straight into, well, you said it, a changing world.
Right. And that's where things get really interesting because the article digs into Australian sentiment toward the monarchy. And it's pretty fascinating, actually.
It's wild how this one trip brings up all these huge questions, but, like, the whole point of a monarchy,
Yeah.
Do you think, like, is Charles going there to win people over?
It's hard to say what he's thinking, but the article mentions this group Republic. They're like the big anti-monarchy group thing.
Oh, right.
And they are using this visit like big time to push their message. It's like they see this as their chance to show everyone why having a king, especially one with health problems, is kind of,
Outdated.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just people being kind of about it. There's actual pushback.
Right, and that puts Charles in a tough spot. Like, if he tries to talk to those groups, he kind of gives them more attention, right? But if he ignores them completely, then it looks like he doesn't care what people think.
Yeah, no winning there.
Exactly. It's a really delicate situation for sure.
Talk about being between a rock and hard place, huh?
Yeah.
So it's tradition versus modern times, looking strong but also being real about the health stuff, and trying to appeal to people who, let's be honest, some of them want you gone.
And that's what makes this trip so pivotal, right? Like, will this be what makes or breaks the monarchy in Australia? It's probably too soon to say, but how Charles handles this is going to have a lasting impact, that's for sure.
Totally. And then there's the whole Prince William thing. The article mentions how, with Charles' health being in the spotlight, people are thinking more about who's next in line.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about Charles being healthy, right? It's about the image, the whole legacy he wants to leave.
Right.
This trip becomes even more crucial if, he wants to show everyone he's still got this.
I'm still in charge here.
Exactly. But he's doing it while dealing with a serious illness, which, adds this whole other layer of, I don't know.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. It's something we haven't really seen before with the monarchy.
Right. The Queen, she was pretty healthy for most of her reign. Charles, it's different.
Completely. Plus, the world's a different place now, right?
Yeah.
More eyes on you, social media, the whole nine
You
yards.
can't just wave and smile anymore.
No way. And the article makes a good point about that, how it's different being a royal now. It's not enough to just exist anymore. You have to like constantly prove you're relevant.
Oh, it sounds exhausting.
Right. And with social media and everything, there's always commentary, analysis, every little thing blown up.
It's like walking a tightrope, trying to be traditional, but also relatable, keeping up with the times. It makes you think with all that, pressure and everyone watching, can Charles even control how this all plays out? Or is he kind of stuck with whatever people decide?
That's the big question, right? And the article actually uses this trip as an example. Remember how Charles's team told the Daily Mail he'd be pausing treatment for this?
Yeah, it seemed kind of weird, right? Why would you tell people that?
Exactly. You'd think they'd want him to look, invincible.
Right.
But by putting it out there, they're getting ahead of it, right? No one can start rumors if you already said it.
Well, that's actually pretty smart.
It shows you how much strategy goes into all this. This isn't just a vacation. Every little thing is about, I don't know, shaping how people see him, sending a message, and ultimately keeping the monarchy going.
It's like playing 4D chess or something.
Right. And speaking of which, the article mentions that the head of that Republic group, Graham Smith, he'll be in Australia at the same time as Charles.
Oh, really? So, using the opportunity to, get their message out there? Man, talk about opposition on all sides.
It's kind of wild, right? Charles is trying to be the symbol of stability, keeping things as they are, and then you've got this group using him being there to point out why that's maybe not such a good idea anymore.
So it becomes this fight for the future then.
Exactly. Can the monarchy keep up with the times? Can they connect with younger people who aren't so into tradition and all that? I mean, those are big questions.
That's a lot riding on one trip, that's for sure.
Right. And this Daily Beast article, it really brings all that home, doesn't it?
It really does. So what should people listening take away from all this?
I think it's how connected everything is,
Yeah.
Charles's health, the trip, even this Republic group, it all plays into this bigger story of where the monarchy goes from here. It reminds us that these big institutions, they aren't set in stone, they change.
Yeah, and it makes you think, what will things look like in a few years, right?
Yeah.
Will the monarchy even, well, who knows?
Exactly. We can't predict the future, but understanding all this, the stuff we talked about today, that's how we start to make sense of it all.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been a fascinating look at King Charles' big trip, and thanks to the Daily Beast for such the thought-provoking article. And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.